the demo video made of the design. It's looking good.
Nice. That's awesome.
Hello.
Hey,
Hey,
Michael.
Michael.
How are you?
Hey,
Other,
I'm
other
doing
Michael.
which of the Michaels? Oh man. Awesome. Let's give it some time as well. So Chris, what demo video were you talking about?
So it was in the, let's see, the same channel that you,
Yep. Is it the one from Gal?
yeah,
Oh
yep.
yeah. We need that in our public docs.
Yeah, it was a nice video.
Yep. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And look at who we have here. We have Grant to spy on us as well. And his video is turned off.
He's feeding his dogs, it looks like.
Probably. Awesome. Okay, we can start a conversation. I don't know if Lucas is on the call. Awesome. So, well, welcome to today's conversation. We'll just go through the agenda item. Really excited to chat with everyone. My first agenda item was on the dependency scanning, just the spec. But I don't see Joel on the call. It seems he can't make it today. So we're gonna punt on that because I really want him to be on the call. We're gonna punt on that and just jump directly to the design walkthrough. Then after we have all the conversations with that, I'm really excited to kind of talk with Amar about the secret push protection. Because I remember I first of all learned about it during the offsite, and I was like, why is this not part of configuration? So that was my first initial gut reaction. Spoke to Michael, spoke to some folks. So I'm really excited to see how we work around that. Then lastly, just kind of reiterating the SPM vision. It's a live doc. I might just go on eye level on the business quarterly goal for the year. And then we'll conclude with any questions we have. So let's kick it off with the design walkthrough from Michael on SaaS and SD.
Cool. Yeah. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So I guess quick spoiler alert, we really only have designs for the secret detection stuff, but there's some aspects of the SaaS pieces we can talk about as well here. Um, so I'll just start by giving you a little context. First off, can everyone see my screen? Should see
Yes.
here.
Yes.
Cool. And as I'm walking through this, feel free to jump in with questions, comments, anything of the sort. No need to wait till the end. So just to kind of give you some context on what we're looking at here. So um, basically, I've largely focused on the profile design itself because I think we've kind of established the process for what it looks like when we have let me get my multiple scanners available. This is not updated, so this is not accurate, but we would see like secret detection, SAST, and so on for our new scanners. So whenever we have a new scanner that uses profiles, we just basically have this same sort of design paradigm that we're establishing here. So the real difference in the profiles themselves is what's actually included in the profile. So I'll jump back to the SAST version here. So I guess there's a couple different things we're looking at. So first of which, this first mock is showing what all the potential triggers might be for profiles while they're in this enablement only state. I don't know that we're going to have all of these, but it's just a point to start a discussion around which ones are going to be most relevant to which scanners. So in this case, we have push protection, which is what we're already using for secret detection. And then we have merge request pipelines, which is what we'll be adding for the pipeline secret detection. And I imagine SAST will also use this.
Yep.
Yep. We've also discussed branch pipelines, and I don't know if it will be included in the MVC or not. It really depends on what we're targeting there, because if we're targeting just the default branch, most customers aren't committing code directly to their default branch. They're using merge requests to do that. So they are still getting security coverage by going with the merge request pipeline. So just something to note is whether this makes sense or not for the MVC. May have scheduled scanning and then historic scanning. So all of these are sort of in a read-only state right now when they're for enablement only. So just kind of giving users a brief description of what it is, and then calling out any values that we've defined for them. So like in this merge request, potentially calling out like what branches we're targeting and what the scope is. Another good example of this would be like scheduled scans showing the frequency and the time. So users can quickly scan and get a sense of how these triggers are working for them. So
And
taking, go
Michael,
ahead. Yeah.
just to add on that, like the schedule scan is out of scope for Q1. I think we
Mhm.
all agreed on the last time we spoke. For the Q1, the merge request pipelines and the branch default branch is something that we'll be leaning towards too. I know there are some other effort with tracked branches or other like branches. That's something that we'll look at for future enhancements. But what you see on this with the scheduled scan and the history, especially the scheduled scan, that is out of scope.
Yeah, that's good
I think
context. Go ahead.
I was going to add one thing. The branch and merge request pipeline, it could, at least in the case of secret detection, the experience changes based on which one you select. So maybe that's something we could bubble up as well. Meaning, like with merge request pipelines, we scan all commits. With branch pipelines, we're only scanning the recent commit. So maybe surfacing that information. I don't know if this would be the right place to do that. Wanted to get people's thoughts. The second piece on that, maybe Grant can speak towards this more, is when people come in to GitLab, they don't really know the complexity behind merge request pipelines versus branch pipelines, and they just want to configure like a scanning tool for their repository. We've gotten feedback from Omer on this recently, where is there a way we can abstract this out so that we're not actually putting the ownership on the customers to decide between a merge request and a branch pipeline? That might complicate things, but maybe Grant, you might have had more conversations with him since we had that initial chat, if you're around. If he's not, maybe we can come back to that feedback. But that's just something I've been seeing is a lot of people start with branch pipelines and then they're like, oh, what are merge request pipelines? Let me
Hmm.
jump to that. So sometimes our projects have a combination of both.
Cool. Yeah, and for this initial release of the enablement only profiles, we're going to basically decide what's most appropriate for each scanner so we can sort of have a strong opinion on what is most, yeah, what we want to include. So but good call outs and good points there.
So what I'm hearing from you is that um, we want a way to kind of help users so that the decision of whether to use MRO versus default is not on them. We have a way to kind of like, make that decision for them easier or something like that so that it kind of takes away that complexity from the users. Is that what I'm hearing?
I can comment. Sarah was listening. I don't know if there's a button where I could be walking and unmute. So the problem is that for a lot of our customers, they land in GitLab or they've evolved into GitLab where they have some projects using merge request pipelines, which is like a newer feature. Like it was introduced later in CI to help with a number of things. Um, in an ideal world, everyone would just use merge request pipelines. That's not the state. However, in reality, some teams choose not to adopt and use merge request pipelines, so they end up in the state where they have branch pipelines. So cool, all good and well. These teams are doing fine with their branch pipelines, these with their MR pipelines, they're loving that. They don't want it, they love that. But we're trying to apply a global thing, a global rule to run scans that is dependent on the pipeline config. And so you get into this weird state where if you create one rule, it has a weird effect in mostly the projects that don't use MR pipelines. So you could just say in a way, one of the thoughts I had initially is saying, who are we really targeting with this profile config? Is it new customers that need to get started very easily, they should use MR pipelines. Like we recommend MR pipelines. We don't optimize for branch pipeline, like the mix of the two. We say you need MR pipelines. Maybe we don't worry about it, but in the case that's a lot of our enterprise customers get started or like um, they're already just in the state. They may try to use these profiles at scale and it won't work. Um, so that's unless, say, for example, with secret detection, Ummer's team just makes it compatible. Like they change how the implementation works to, which I don't know. It's hard to do because like MR pipelines give you context that we don't have in branch pipelines today. So there's just a fundamental limitation.
Do we know what it looks like from existing folks to migrate from default branches to MRO pipelines?
So from from like branch pipelines to MR pipelines, they have to update their CI config.
Okay.
I think there's also a setting perhaps that could be related, but I think I think fundamentally you have to update your GitLab CI YAML, and
And
you could do
that
that
is
at any point and
okay.
be like, oh, now I'm using MR pipelines. Now I'm
Yeah,
not. Change my mind.
that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. And let's say, for example, like customers like Swisscom who have like over 40,000 projects, with that, the existing migration, is it like scalable for those kind of customers, or is it just at, one by one migration?
One by one. Yeah,
As in,
changing
okay,
yeah, changing the project's existing CI YAML config could be very disruptive
disruptive, okay.
if you aren't conscious or aware of like they may have rules dependent on their setup and you go to MR pipelines and things break. So if you do it without their involvement, yeah, that could happen. Yeah, there could be a way to like trigger MRs to say we recommend,
Yeah.
you change your config, here's the updated config or something. But yeah, there's not a scalable approach to do that today.
Hmm. I see.
Anyway, it can be a very very much a rabbit hole, so I don't want to take the call off track. Just trying to
No,
give
no, no, no
context.
worries. No worries. Because from just the conversation right now, if ML pipelines is kind of like the new greatest thing, it has more context than branch. I want folks to use that. We could just say, to use this profile, use that ML pipelines as a kind of like a prerequisite. But again, I think one of the risks is that, some of those enterprise customers are already using branch pipelines. So I'm just kind of wrapping my head, what does it actually take them? If this would be like a good motivation for them to actually migrate to MRO pipelines is something we could explore there. But uh,
True.
I want to open this to more thoughts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a world in which you do like consider doing something like I'm looking at the base design here, like putting recommended next to merge request pipelines, but it sounds like nonetheless, while we could shout from the rooftops that, that's the preferred method based on the environment you described from Swisscom and who knows what other customers, if they're using branch pipelines today en masse, it sounds like it'd be quite a bear to try to switch to merge request pipelines.
Yeah. Maybe a thought or recommendation would be I don't know if we have design partners yet specifically for profiles, but it could be that we focus on the premium tier customers that we want to upgrade. Like if that's the problem we're trying to solve, or if it's ultimate enterprise customers today and reducing the churn risk, being able to do this at scale, that's we have to solve it. I think those are kind of two paths. And it depends on in discussion with Omer and team how we, you know, do we want to try to solve it in profiles for enterprise? Yeah, I think it depends on the target.
Yeah, yeah. I think okay. Let me punt on that. I'm really liking where the conversation is going. Just on like just my gut feeling is that we're looking at the latter rather than the first for now. Just kind of retaining those ultimate customers since our overall non-star is kind of focused on that ultimate customers getting to 70%. At least they are using 2+ scanners. But the funnel of how we get from premium to ultimate is something that we can also like punt on that and consider, because at the end of the day we want more customers to get to that ultimate tier. So I'm liking this conversation, so I appreciate bringing this up. I saw you typing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'll briefly describe. We are trying to make the behavior for branch pipelines and merge request pipelines uniform. So we've opened up
Okay,
an issue to try to tackle that.
awesome.
There's going to be some collaboration needed with pipeline execution. I don't know that this is going to happen anytime soon, but in the event that this does come up through any customer conversation, we can always point them to this issue and at least start to gather customer interest. So I
Awesome.
wouldn't
I like that.
heavily lean on it yet, though, just as a workaround, possibly.
I didn't get that last part. You will heavily lean on what?
I wouldn't like call this issue out as this will solve everyone's problems just because it hasn't gotten any traction, but it is something that we are trying to explore.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good. Awesome.
Cool. Should I continue on then?
Absolutely.
Cool. So the next example I have here is what the secret detection profile would look like once we do have both the push protection and the merge request secret detection integrated into one profile. And for all other scanners, this sort of format will probably be very much the same for the enablement only, where we essentially have a description of what that profile is, helping sort of set expectations for users. We would have whatever appropriate scan triggers are relevant for each scanner. So in the case of secret detection, we'd launch with just the push protection and then merge request pipelines. And then we don't have this built out today. This is sort of future facing, but listing out the projects that are using a profile and any activity on that profile itself. This just helps users sort of understand, what the current state of each project that's using this profile is, if scanning is working properly or not, and then any sort of updates to the profile. One thing that I was talking about yesterday with Michael, and we don't know that we have an answer to yet, is when we do have multiple triggers, and some scanners could eventually have like 3, 4, 5 different triggers. How does that all bubble up to a single status? So if we have one trigger that's failing and 3 that are working perfectly fine, how do we want to handle that and display that here? And then as well as in the security inventory where we have sort of a single status for each scanner as well.
Yeah,
So
that's an interesting problem. I mean, at least in terms of scan status, just simplifying it greatly off the cuff, it would be like, if you had multiple different scans happening and two of them were doing great, but one of them was failing, but you only have like a single thing to show the overall status, then it's best to show that there's a failure than make them think that everything's okay.
yeah, I think I would agree with that direction generally. So just for context, security inventory, we have these, and then you could hover over each one to get a sense of each trigger and what how each trigger is performing. So we could call out when they hover over it, which one's actually failing.
Yeah. And a question about not this one, but the design you were just showing,
Yeah,
where we were talking about the status and everything. Um,
there we are.
so yeah, for the projects section, I know you said, this hasn't been built out yet, but I'm just curious, and this could be a rabbit hole too, but I I suppose I would expect that Well, actually, I think what I saw from the video recording that was posted in the channel that even though you can bulk select projects in a group and apply a configuration profile, they're
Mhm.
not technically being directly associated to the group level. So yeah, I guess that's why we're showing it in the context of projects. Okay. I sort of answered my own question. Okay.
Yep, yeah. At least for the initial release, profiles apply directly to projects. We still have a little bit more thinking and some ideas to kick around on like setting defaults for groups, things of that sort.
Yeah, I could definitely see an argument for wanting to do it on a group level very easily. And then also when that comes in, which sounds like it won't be too long, possibly even org level as well.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The thing, the goal would be like, scalability. Like at the project level, it's not scalable right now, but it's about building that foundation that kind of gets us to that North Star.
Yeah.
One quick dimension I'll add to the scan status. I'll keep it short. In addition to what Chris said about like some scans might be active, some might fail, or some might be successful, some might fail. There's also the notion of scan being different between like the trigger. So push protection may not be a scan. It could be just push is blocked as the success. And then merge
Uh,
request pipelines would be like scans performed since it's one's pipeline based, one's not. So that's another dimension. I don't know what the answer is, but something that might be difficult to or confusing for customers.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to call out. We definitely have an opportunity to provide some context to users through this sort of subtext down below. So it could be different for each scanner, like for secret push protection. Maybe we do show like two scanners working properly. I don't know, just spitballing ideas here on how we might communicate that sort of at a quick level. But yeah, definitely a good thing to call out. Trying to think if there's anything else. One thing I think is worth mentioning, especially since Chris, you're
Uh,
on the call. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
Michael, one thing, first of all, Amma, thanks for bringing that up. Just kind of you know, things may be different from based on the trigger. Michael, when you were explaining the trigger, you talked about, what happens if we have like five triggers and all of that,
Mhm.
and how do we like, what are the possible triggers that can happen? Because right now I can think of three, which is the, gates, push, MRO default. I know we have tracked branch, but still looking at what that actually look like. So are we saying is it actually going to be more than five triggers? Or is this just like, an assumption that, what happens if we have multiple triggers?
I would say it's definitely more of an assumption that will scale
Okay.
some of the triggers because I know, like, if you look at policies, for instance, we have a number of potential trigger events. Could be merge request pipelines, merge result pipelines, branch pipelines, scheduled scans. There's a number of different things here, and I think it was like seven or eight listed there. I don't know if we're going to do mirror all of those in profiles versus or from what's available for policies. So I guess
Mm,
to be decided on how we surface them in profiles and what's included.
okay. Okay. I think I and Grant need to have that conversation I've been avoiding for the past 2 weeks about, what happens to configurations and policies when it comes to scan policies, like, just the not star of that. So if we see configuration kind of filling in the gaps or replacing policies, there's some, of these edge cases that we may need to kind of, go through. So Grant, I and you need to have that conversation. Awesome. Thanks, Michael.
Cool. One comment I just want to make to Chris. Generally, our concept here is that each type of scanner has a single profile, and we're sort of aggregating all the different scan triggers and stuff in that profile. For the case of SaaS and thinking about the AI agentic scanner, we were debating whether it makes sense to have that be incorporated in a single SaaS profile or whether that, since it is AI powered, should be its own distinct
Profile.
scanner profile.
Yeah.
Yeah, curious if you had any thoughts on that. So it's certainly something you can chew on a bit too. I know I owe you some designs for the SaaS stuff. I'm hoping to get to them this week or early next week so we can have some designs to kick around and spark the discussion too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Off the cuff, I think there's arguments for both.
Mhm.
I can see pros and cons on both sides. Like there's of course the part of me that wants to promote it and make it very obvious, which lends itself towards having its own profile. But there's also the part of me that wants to reduce the perception of analyzer sprawl as much as possible. So yeah, it's something I'll have to think about more.
Okay, very cool.
I might be jumping the gun on this question, but can I ask how we are currently representing like SemGrep versus Glass in a profile, or dependency scanning, the new DS analyzer versus Gymnasium? Like, how do we choose which analyzer we want to move forward with?
I believe on I can speak to the SAST. The SAST, we agree that the default is gonna be the big
Advanced
stuff.
that. Yeah.
Advanced SAST, yep, advanced SAST. Then the fallback is on SemGrep if there are languages that are not supported, that they're being detected. I want to say something similar. That would be something similar to dependency scanning. That's kind of why I wanted Joe on the call, because that's where my head is at, but they want like some, buying from him as well. And Chris, feel free to jump in if that does make sense. I know we talked about that a couple of weeks
Yeah,
ago on
yeah.
this as well.
It can't definitely can't speak for dependency scan, but yeah, it still
Yeah.
makes sense for the focus to be on advanced SAST. That is where we want everyone to go. And in most ways, with the exception of a couple, like a few languages, it is mostly a net improvement over SemGrep. And even more so, we already have like fallback options built into advanced SAS to fall back into SemGrep, when we encounter languages that it doesn't support.
Got it. So you wouldn't expect the user to have to configure the fallback scanner in the event that the
Right.
initial one isn't working, or if they're using the legacy one, aka SemGrep, um, when applying the configuration, it would be explicitly clear that they're applying the new scanner rather than the old one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I,
And if
I
they're
don't
like,
know. I don't know if they need to know that. I just, if they're applying profile, they are just applying SAST. I don't know if they
Mhm.
care about what goes behind the scene. If we need to spell it out that you're running advanced SAST as default versus SemGrep. But the fallback logic should be in the back end. It kind
yeah,
of
it is.
comes to your point, Amar, earlier, that we should kind of take that decision away from the customers to kind of
Mhm.
know what background technology is being used. But the job to be done is that they enable SAST and SAST is working.
Yeah, and if it's a like there is a case where if it's an existing customer, especially one who's been around with us for a while and using our AppSec related capabilities, like we still have a non-trivial amount of customers who are regularly using SemGrep for the analyzer. And there's a few different cases for that, performance related, awareness related, et cetera, all things we're working on. But, the way I see it for existing customers who already have the name recognition of this thing called the SemGrep analyzer that they're using, like nothing should have to change there. And even though we kind of saw it quick in, I think, the first design that Michael Fangman showed, we're still surfacing the legacy, what we'll now be calling the legacy scan configuration options, of which SemGrep is part of.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, that's very helpful. The reason why I asked the question is we're introducing a new secret detection analyzer. So that's
Oh,
going to be,
Oh,
that's me trying to get ahead of that. So just trying to
yeah.
understand how these are set. So yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
interesting.
Well, thanks for letting me know now, Amma.
Yeah, I got you. Don't worry. I'm coming for both Michaels, so I guess is my
Okay, awesome.
Cool. Michael Lomko, I do agree with your thought that users, we shouldn't have to introduce the complexity in the profiles to show which analyzer we're actually using and stuff. It's something we could certainly include in the documentation for those that are
Yeah.
curious. They could understand how we're sort of using the analyzers, what the fallback system looks like, etc. So,
Absolutely.
um, I guess one consideration too for the AI-powered SAS scanner is I know there may be a cost difference between using that versus our other SAS analyzers. So something to think about as we're deciding whether it makes sense to integrate that into one versus have it be its own separate.
Yeah, the cost thing is occupying the majority of my time for the past several weeks, and hopefully we'll be coming to a head on that next week with some additional data that engineering's gathering. But I even regardless of that, like hypothetically speaking, if we find a pathway to making it essentially like a negligible difference cost wise to what you can sort of extrapolate out is the cost for, running SAST in Ultimate today. Um, it doesn't change the fact, I think, that like at the end of the day, it's still an AI based capability. And so there still probably ought to be disclosure to the user that like, yes, you are opting into an AI capability.
Yeah, I definitely
Grant,
agree. Disclosure is important. Go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
Grant, what recommendation is this?
Disregard. I'm just
ignore
making
us. We're
jokes.
just
Ignore
A
it.
Okay.
little humorous sidebar.
Yeah, not productive or
Awesome.
useful at all.
Gotta
No
have
worries.
fun.
Yeah, yeah. Chris, a question for you.
Yeah.
So my mental model is like for advanced SaaS and SendGrab, the only cost that customers will be concerned about is compute cost.
Yes.
For AI SaaS, is there a combination of the AI, token cost and compute cost, or just token cost?
It's both. And
Both.
and we're seeing if we can we're exploring a number of different pathways, but maybe there is a world in which we can get the cost so low that we would actually consider absorbing it as part of the
Yeah.
cost of Ultimate. But maybe not. Right now,
Okay.
it's not looking so good. So we'll see.
Okay. I mean, this is something that we could take offline as well. I remember when we met with Swisscom, when we showed them the SPM vision, the first thing that came to their mind was cost. And the compute cost, being able to filter and select things that really matters rather than just turning it on for everything. So if you're looking at scalability of AI SaaS, so that could be something that may come up, but we could take this offline.
Yeah, yeah. Happy to kind of give you more details on like where things are at with that right now.
Awesome. Michael, over to you.
Yeah, so I think that covers the bulk of what I have. So obviously I'll start working on some designs for dependency scanning and SAST as well. Any other thoughts or feedback on these or questions y'all might have before moving on to our next topic? Or Michael, if there's
I love the
anything.
little activity graph at the bottom. Excellent touch.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's definitely helpful. One thing I still have yet to figure out for the activity graph too is if we show only changes to the profile or if we actually show like when the profile has been applied to different projects too or not. Very minor detail, but still some things to figure out there. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts.
Absolutely.
For what it's worth, my off the cuff thought to throw in there is I think there could be value in having whether or not like if the profile has been applied to a project or unapplied from a project. I mean, that's an important signal because it's the difference between like let's say that the just hypothetically, let's say the only profile that was being applied to a project right now was like a SAST profile, and seeing that the profile was unapplied versus applied is the difference between you are securing your source code or not securing your source code.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree on that. I agree on that. And something this is something that is worth digging into because I know we have the audit logs as well, the audit. So it could be something that could live in that space for those kind of like, more of
Yeah.
like systemic applications, while this we have a subset of activities that make sense in this page.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest if or first ask if the activity items tie to an audit event, because if not, that would be a good tie-in. If you say like disabled for 450 projects, you could like link to the specific audit event that emitted that action, and then you have all the details that you need. It'd be
Yeah,
very
it's
helpful for compliance reasons
a good
or for
idea.
compliance use cases.
A good point. One thing to note too, so when we're in the state of enablement only profiles, all the upper stuff is all consistent for every customer, but the projects and the activity, if we do go down this route of showing when it's applied and not applied, that would be unique to each customer. So just
Absolutely.
probably a complexity on the engineering side to think about what's possible there.
Absolutely. And just on scope, this project and activity won't be for Q1, but it's something that's going to come up for future enhancement. So really appreciate Michael putting this down.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Any other thoughts or questions before I hand it back to Michael?
I think it looks great. Yeah, solid work, Michael.
Awesome. I
Not
appreciate
you,
it.
Michael
Awesome.
O. Just you, Michael Penguin.
Ah, it's okay. I like to be the center of attention sometimes. Awesome. Michael, I appreciate you putting this together. I think the next step will just to have like a dedicated issue for SaaS and
Yep.
SD so that we could kind of familiarize this with folks and they can
Mhm.
have comment directly to those issues. So, but aside that, I think we're looking good on this.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll start working on getting those design issues put together. And as they do come up, I'll tag the appropriate people so we can start scrutinizing, getting the right feedback and all of that in them.
Awesome. Awesome.
Appreciate
And
it.
Chris and Amma, really appreciate collaborating with the ST, partners on this. And Joe who's not on the call today. I know that he would have had some good feedback here as well. So I appreciate that. And Grant as well for, all the wonderful spying you've been spying lately. So really appreciate that too. Awesome. So Emma, I think we have like a couple of minutes to jump to what you to the secret push protection on by default. Before we do that, just on eye level for the SPM vision, I have like a tab for our 1 year quarterly goal. I'm kind of going through that to just kind of align or no to make it clearer on our metrics that we'll be chasing. So that's something that we'll be kind of looking at on that. Then yeah, so we can jump to Amma on this. I see you typing already.
Yes, I'll just talk and then I'll type. So we had the concept of wanting to globally set like whether or not push protection was on by default for all new projects, not just the existing projects that are being configured. Um, we had gotten feedback from customers that this is one of their biggest pain points with adopting push protection right now because they have to continuously go in and run an API that SPM provided us to configure projects at scale. So they just want a global setting that says not only for existing projects, but can this profile be applied to new projects? Initially, we were just going to make the opinionated default of any new projects that get created. We're just going to turn on push protection. However, after talking through that with Omer, we both decided that just delaying this decision until profiles are more mature would be the right way to go, just so that people have a way to opt out if that's not the default behavior they want to choose. So part one was just surfacing that decision. We're going to delay this, but part two, and I'm not sure where this would fall in with scope and what quarter, but the providing the ability to configure global defaults is something that I wanted to get everyone's opinion on. We don't have to have that conversation right now, but I do think it's worth calling out. And this is a good example of that.
Awesome. Plus one on that. And kind of like, my gut feeling is the SPM with the configuration knob or the control knob for security. And if we enable secret push protection as default, it's a conversation of if that does make sense for us, which I kind of feel it makes sense, but also exploring other options like what Grant is kind of putting on the dock as well. And I think there's a fine line. I've seen other competitors do this different way. Some just build it as part of their secret protection, offering, similar to how we have different triggers. We have like something that enable that at that level, or we have some sort of policy at the organization level that does that. So, no, we need to kind of discuss more on that and refine on that as well. Grant?
Yeah, and I don't know, just because we've talked about it as well, Amr. I think you raised the Epic or issue about adding. I mean, we had talked about it some time back too, just adding secret push protection to policies. I don't think that's the end state. I think the end state is the profiles that give you like really like give you a lot of clarity in terms of which profiles being enabled across all your projects, and it ties into the inventory and the policies. I think should work well with profiles. Maybe in ensuring you have the profiles enabled or relaxing certain rules. So I don't know. I think we need to figure out what that looks like. But just a note, thinking about our adoption metrics for policies and this could be still an opportunity to drive more usage in the meantime until we do reach maturity. So I'm aligned
Yeah.
in the end state. I don't want to have this state where we're like, well, when to use a profile or when to use a policy. I think, and I talked a lot with Michael Feynman in the past about ideas on that for the future. So yeah, I would like to crystallize some of that more.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to provide any input on either of those. I think, like you called out, the main thing is where are we headed, and would it be confusing if we introduced a stopgap on the
True.
way there,
Yeah.
or so just whatever we decide, let me know. Not let me know the decision. Let me know when you have the conversation, and I'll be
Sure.
happy to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It does make sense. Because I also say this are like a two-step approach whereby, for the enabling of the push protection by default is live somewhere. And then the second step will be DAO, any new project that is being created, it's automatically enabled for them. So kind of like enforcing that. But the end state does make sense. It's something that we would love to kind of discuss more on here as well too. So all aligned on that. Sounds good. So Grant, we can discuss this in a one-on-one, or actually let's discuss it right now.
Yeah. So I was just kind of curious so we have plans on our roadmap to support security attributes in defining policies. So let's focus on the MR approval policy as an example. You could scope the policy today to all of your groups, a certain group, projects, or projects with a compliance framework label, and we want to add attributes. So what I'm wanting to be aware of is like, what are the customers that we're working with most closely that we expect to start using attributes, and I want to cross-reference those that are heavily using policies, and we want to be able to experiment and validate that this is important to implement in policies as we expect it is. So yeah, that's why I'm looking to see who your top customers are that you're expecting to like
Yeah.
heavily adopt.
Yeah, I think off the cuff, we don't have like a dedicated design partners we're working with on security attributes. I think right now the consensus was that because it's a beta feature, folks are not wanting to adopt anything with beta, and that's kind of why we're moving that tag to make it GA uh, to get more customers to adopt it. We have some metrics of at least people just using it, but not like a definite customers that is adopting that. One thing we've heard from the last customer that we spoke with was with Swisscom on the scalability of the attribute. They were like, again, we have over 44,000, uh, projects. How do we actually go into each one of them and mark or tag a label to them? And it's something that I'm, really thinking about on, how can we make attributes scalable and getting more feedback on that. So if there's like a customer that we could, like a ground zero customer that we could kind of reach out to, Swisscom will be the first one. As I meet with more customers, I think we're gonna get more feedback on that. And like the security attribute is a wide west to me right now because any customers can define what label makes sense to them, and then coming like in having a way to scale that is gonna be very tricky because different customers have different labels that make sense to their organization. So I think in the future, I'm thinking of how we're gonna attack that scalability piece. But when it comes to like exact design partners, like Swisscom will be one of them, and we hope to see more customers adopting security attributes.
Cool. Yeah. So I think we can just stay in touch and conversation on that. If you are seeing customers that are really, going all in on using attributes and vice versa, I'm probably going to be looking for more customers to test using policies and attributes together and make sure it's something that they're really going to use. Um, so yeah, let me
Awesome.
know.
Awesome. For sure, I will let you know. Thanks for bringing that up. And also, uh, do we have like an issue item for that? Just working with policies and security attributes?
Yeah, I'll drop that in here.
Awesome. So that I add it to my long list of issues to kind of take a look at.
Yeah, primarily it's the policy scoping. So saying projects with this or these attributes. I think it got disappeared. Oh yeah,
No,
wrong. Oh, wrong,
I just
wrong
moved
topic.
it.
Thank you.
No worries.
Um, there could also be a use case for uh, using it in the rules. So if you have, say, an MR approval policy and you want to say, define a rule that's looking for a specific attribute and leveraging it in the logic. I'm trying to think of a really crystal clear example, but if CVSS score is above this severity high or critical attributes include XYZ, it could be that you
Mm-hmm.
could create a more dynamic policy that you're applying the policy everywhere, but certain rules or conditions leverage the attributes to make decisions. So that would be another thing to test out using the business context, the project context to make decisions.
Okay. Awesome. Does make sense. Appreciate that. I think there's some questions around I have around security attribute that uh I'm bringing it up to doing our one-on-one today for more historical context. But again, thanks for bringing that up as well. And I'm to your question, I'm gonna make it available to our GitLab team members.
Excellent. I've been referencing it a couple times. I like
Okay.
the product tenets a lot, and that's something I've been trying to adopt within my team. So
Okay.
having to just screen share versus just send a link was the main reason why.
Awesome. Let me see if I can figure out how to do that later. Awesome. Cool, cool, cool. Any other, I know we are time, give you guys some 10 minutes to prepare for your next conversation, but any other like topics or questions before we end? Awesome. Again, appreciate everybody on the call. Mehmet was a little bit quiet today, so but it's okay. We know he attended the call today and he has very valuable contributions as well.
It's a bit late, that's why I was just listening.
No worries, no worries. Well, thank you all, for today's call. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks for the topics and the conversation so far.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, Michael and
Thank
Michael.
you.
Oh,
Okay.
appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.